Alright guys, in this video we're going to style some menus. So we're going to create a vertical like side menu and then also a navigation bar that goes horizontal. So let's create a new file called 09_menus.html. And for the title I'm just going to say menu styling. And let's add in our style tags. And for the markup, we just want to add a UL, and I'm going to give it a class of side menu. Okay, we're going to have a list item with a link inside of it. Doesn't matter where it goes. And then let's just say home for the text. And then we'll copy this down a few times, and this one will be about. This will be services. And this will be contact. Okay, let's save that. Let's open it up. And there we go, looks horrendous. First thing I'm going to do is for the body, I'm just going to change the font family to, let's do Arial. And next thing we want to target the side menu, which is the UL. And I want to get rid of the bullets because by default, ULs have these disk bullets. Now you can get rid of these within the UL or within the list item with the list style property, and we want to set that to none. So we'll save that. That gets rid of them. You can see we also have the Arial font. Next thing I want to do is add a border around the whole UL. So we'll say border, and let's set it to 1 pixel. I want to do a light gray, so I'm going to do DDD, and let's do solid. Save that, good. Let's do a border radius just to add a slight curve. We'll do 10 pixels. And let's set a width of 300 pixels. Kind of shorten it a little bit. And let's set the padding. Now, by default, unordered lists have 40 pixels padding on the left, as you can see, that's pushed over. So doing padding 20 pixels on all sides is going to overwrite that. So if I save that, you can see now we have 20 pixels on all sides. And then I think that's all I want to do for the UL. So now we're going to focus on the list items themselves. So side menu list items, and we want to set the font size a little bigger. By default it's 16. We're going to set it to 18. I think I have this zoomed in. Let me just see real quick. Yeah, so that's normal. That's 100%. So font size 18. I also want them spread apart quite a bit, so I'm going to use line height and set it to 2.4 em. Save that, and it's going to spread them apart. Let's see, what else do we want here? Let's do a border bottom on each one. And I'm going to do dotted for the style, 1 pixel, and the same color as the UL border. So you can see that each one now has this bottom border. Now, one thing I want to show you is the borders I put them here to separate the links, and we don't need the last one under contact, so we can actually use a pseudo selector called last child to target the last list item. So let's say side menu li : last dash child. Okay, and we'll get into some of the other pseudo selectors later on. We can select the first one, we can select anything in the middle, we can do like all the even, all the odd, and it's pretty powerful. But just for now, we're going to use last child and set border to none and save, and now the last link here, or the last list item, doesn't have a border. So for the styling of the actual links, the color and the underline, we have to target the A tag. So let's do side menu list item A, and let's change the color to 333. Let's get rid of the underline with text decoration none. Save that. And for the hover, right now it doesn't change at all, so I want to actually change the color for that. So let's say side, I don't know why I keep doing slide. Let's do LIA : hover, and let's change the color to coral. So now when I hover over a link, it turns into the coral color. All right, so I think that that's pretty much it. It's not the best looking menu, but it looks a lot better than the standard unordered list. So now we're going to move on to the navigation menu. So I'm just going to put a comment right here, side menu. And down here, let's just copy this up. So I'm going to do Shift Option up, and this one I'm going to change the class to navbar. And let's just put a couple line breaks in between these two to kind of just separate them a little bit. All right, so this is our navbar. So we want this to go straight across, and we want these links or the list items to float. So let's go under, actually we'll go above since navbar is at the top. All right, so we want to target the UL, which is called navbar. And the first thing I want to do is remove the list, the bullets. So we're going to say list style none. Okay, now I want to take away all the margin and all the padding. Save that, good. Let's see, next thing we want to do is add the background. I'm going to use that Facebook style blue, which is 4C6 CA0. Okay, we'll save that. Let's add a border radius of 5 pixels. Okay, now I'm going to go down here and we're going to say navbar list item, and we want to float these because we want them to be side by side. We don't want them to go down. We don't want them to be vertical. So let's float all of the list items to the left, so they'll kind of just stack side by side. So I'll save that, and it happened. They float now to the left, but the background is now gone. Since we floated it, it kind of collapsed the background. So the way that we can fix this is go to the navbar, the parent element, and we want to add in overflow and set that to auto and save. And now we get the background back. All right, because now the background is going to basically pertain to whatever content is inside of it. And you can set this to hidden as well. If you have some content that goes outside of the element and it has a scroll bar, and let's say you don't want that scroll bar there, you can set overflow to hidden. And I'm sure we'll run into that later. But now that we have the background, let's start to style the links. So we want to say navbar li a, and let's change the color to white. Okay, we'll take away the underline. Save that. And we want to display as block. Let's actually move this up to the top. Okay. Now, since we display block, we can add some padding, and it's going to give some space on the top, bottom here, also space in between all of the links. So let's say for each link we want some padding. We want to do 15 on the top and bottom, and we want to do 20 on the left and right. So let's save that, and there we go. So it kind of filled out the wrapper, the navbar UL. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's make it so that when we hover over a link, the background changes color. So I'm just going to make it a slightly darker than the blue it already is. So let's say navbar list item a hover, and we're going to do a background color, and that's going to be, let's see, what is that going to be? 446,190, which is slightly darker. We can also change the color of the text. We'll just do like a light gray, slight change. So now if we go up and we hover, you'll see that it changes the background and it takes up the whole area of the link. Now sometimes you might see people put the padding on the list item, but that's not really a good idea, especially if you want to have the hover state take up the whole thing like this. Otherwise, it would just take up like a square around it, which doesn't look very good. And you'll see different ways to create nav bars. I think that this specific CSS is probably the easiest to do this. And you'll see if I make this bigger, it just stretches along. If I make it really small, well, actually, we don't have enough links here, but if we had more links, it would just knock on to the next line, which doesn't look very good. So later on, I'm going to show you how to create a more responsive nav bar where it will kind of, when you get to a certain screen size, like for a smartphone, they'll actually switch to going this way, and it'll look nice and neat, centered, and stuff like that. All right, so next I quickly want to look at the display property. You see how I did display block here? We can change inline to block and vice versa. There's also something called inline block. So we're gonna take a look at that in the next video. All right, in this video, we're going to look at the display property with the values inline, block, and inline block. Now, display is very important because that's actually how we implement Flexbox. It's how we implement the CSS grid, but we're not going to get to that just yet. We'll do that a little later. So in this video, I want to show you how to turn block level elements into inline and vice versa, and also look at inline blocks. So let's create a new file called, let's call it 10_inline_block.html. And I'm just going to close this up. And for the title, we'll say inline and block styling. Okay, so in the body, I'm going to start off with a UL. I guess I don't even need to give it. We're only gonna have one UL, so we'll just use that as a selector. But this is gonna be like a menu, so we'll do an A tag in here. This will go just nowhere. And let's say that these are like categories. Maybe it's I don't know, a list of blog posts or something like that. So we'll just say like technology. And for this one, let's say business and I don't know, fashion. All right, so let's go ahead and open this up. And by default, list items are block level, right? If we open up our tools and we use our element selector and we look at the list item, you can see that it goes all the way across and it knocks the next one down. So that's a block level element. Now we can change that to be inline, and in fact this could be a way to create a horizontal menu, horizontal navigation. So let's go up into our styling and let's grab onto the UL and let's set it to, I'm sorry, not the UL, the LI. And let's set it to display, inline, and save. So notice that now it's going this way, and the bullets are no longer showing either. Now you probably want to spread these out a little bit, so we could do like, actually I'd probably put these on the links, so LIA, and let's set padding right to 10 pixels. Okay, so it's gonna spread them apart. Actually, let's do 20. All right, so that's how we can change block level elements to inline. Now let's take an inline element such as an image and make it block level, and I'm going to show you a reason why you would do this. So let's put a couple line breaks in, and we'll put in an image, and inside of our folder we still have the img folder with the leaf.png. I'm going to use that. So in here, let's do /, so the current directory, and go into the image directory, and we want leaf png. For the alt, I'll just say my image, and save that. Okay, now this is an inline image, or I'm sorry, an inline element. If we grab the selector and we take a look, you'll see how it doesn't go all the way across. If I were to put another image in, actually if I just duplicate this and save, it's going to go next to it. It doesn't get pushed onto the next line. Now, I want to make this a block level element. Let me get rid of one of these. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to add margin auto, because I want it in the middle. If I were to do that now, nothing happens because we can't do this. We can't do margin auto on an inline element. Okay, it needs to be block level. So we'll simply say display block and save, and now we can actually add margin auto. I can't tell you how confusing that was to me a long time ago when I was just trying to simply center an image and margin auto just wouldn't work. I didn't realize that the element had to be display block to be able to do that. All right, so these are two situations where you would want to display something that's normally inline, or I'm sorry, normally block as inline and normally inline as block. Now, let's say we want some divs here, some box divs like we've been dealing with. I'm just going to put a couple line breaks. And let's do a class of box and an H3. We'll just say heading, and then let's put paragraph lorem 20. And let's say we have 3 of these. Okay, we'll go ahead and save that. And let's say we want to align these going across. Actually, you know what? First, let's style them a little bit just so we can kind of see the outline and stuff like that. So we'll do what we've been doing, just give them a quick background. Border. Actually, let's not even do a border. Let's just do padding, 20 pixels. What else? We'll do margin bottom, 15 pixels. And we want these to display horizontally. So obviously we need a width, right? So width, let's do 32%. Now if I save that, we get that width, but they're still on top of each other because by default divs are displayed as block. So maybe we just need to do inline, right? Let's do display inline and save, and that doesn't work. And the reason that this isn't working, and it'll show you right in here in VS Code, this property width is being ignored because display, you can't use width on inline, okay? And the margin is also being ignored. So the solution to this, if we want these to go across, is to use inline block, which is basically like a mix of both. It goes horizontal, but it also allows us to add widths. So let's change it to inline dash block and save. Now this is getting knocked on to the next line because, again, we have padding. So that's getting added to the width because we didn't add the box sizing property. So let's go up here and let's say box. Actually, you know what? Let's just put it. That's what I'll usually do, but we can just put it in here. So box sizing, border box, and save. And now you'll see that they're aligned side by side. We can probably even do 33. No, let's do like 32 point. I don't think I mentioned that. We can do decimals and percentages like that. Okay, so that looks pretty cool actually. But yeah, so we have display inline, display block, and display inline block. And then later on when we get to flex, we can do display flex. We can also do display grid. And I'm gonna talk all about that and the different properties that are associated with that as well. But yeah, so that's that. In the next video, we're gonna look at positioning. There's different types of positioning: relative, absolute, fixed. So I want to explain what the difference is between all of those in the next video. All right, guys. So now we're going to talk about the position property, which has to do with positioning elements in certain places on the page. So we're going to create a new file here called 11_position.html. And let's put in our head body tags. And for the title, we'll just say CSS positioning. And let's do our style tags. And as far as the HTML goes, I just want to have 5 boxes, and we're going to format them to just be square colored boxes, and we want to position them in certain ways. So each one will have its own ID. Let's do box 1, but I also want them to have a class of box because that's what we're going to use to create the height and width. And let's do 5 of these. Okay, so this will be box 2, 3, 4, and 5. And let's go up here and style the box class to have a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. Now if I save this and we open this up, it's going to be blank because we have no backgrounds for these boxes. So each one will have a different color background. So let's grab box 1. Let's give it a background of red. And then I'm going to just copy this down so we have 5 of them. And let's do box 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we'll do red, yellow, green, blue, and orange. Okay, so let's save this, and now everything by default has a position of static. Okay, if I do a position here and say static, that's actually the default. I'll save it. It's the same. Now I just want to show you a quick screen right here that has all the possible values of position. So static is the default, and it's not affected by top, bottom, left, and right properties. In CSS, we have properties where we can, let's say for top, we want to move it from the top a certain amount of pixels or percentage. We can do that, but we can't do it if it's position static. Okay. Relative, we can use these values, top, bottom, left, right, and it'll cause them to be moved from their normal position. Okay. And whatever its normal position would be on the page, we can move it from that. Now, absolute is different because absolute, it pertains to its parent element. So if you have a parent, like let's say a div that's surrounding other divs, you would make the inner divs absolute and the outer div or its parent relative, and then you could position it within that parent. Okay, and I'm going to give you an example of that. Fixed is actually positioned to the viewport, meaning the whole browser window, so it'll stay at that place even if you scroll down or whatever. And then sticky is similar to fixed, except you can stick it in a certain position, like at the top. Okay, when you're scrolling down, if you want it to stay at the top, you could use sticky, and this is used a lot for menus where you always want the menu to show at the top no matter what, so you can navigate the site. All right, so I'm going to give you examples of all of these. So we already looked at static, that's just the default. Let's change this to relative. And since we set it to relative, we can actually use top, right, bottom, and left properties. So let's say we want to push this, let's say 50 pixels from the top, and from the left, we want to push it 50 pixels. And I'll save that, and notice the red box has now moved 50 down and 50 over from the left. Okay, and if we didn't do position relative and I save, it doesn't work. Okay, so it's going to be from its natural place. We can move it. Now absolute, like I said, has to do with inside of a parent. So box 2 and 3, I'm going to make absolute, but I'm going to put them within a container class, or a div with the class of container. And if there is no relative parent, it's going to use just the body, okay, or basically the whole browser window here. So let's do that. Now 2 and 3, which are the yellow and green, are within the container. So up here, just so we can see the limits of the container, let's give it a width of 500 pixels, a height of 500 pixels, a background of dark gray, and let's position it relative, because remember the parent has to be position relative. And I'll save that, and there we go, there's the container. Okay, now box 1 and box 2 are within the container, but let's say we want to move this one 100 pixels down from the top and 100 pixels over from the left. So if I go to box 2 and I say top 100 pixels, and left 100 pixels. Save it. It doesn't move because it's still static, right? Now, since I want it to move 100 pixels down and out within its container, I want to set it to absolute. So let's say position absolute and save. And now you can see that it moved down 100 pixels and over 100 pixels within its container. Now box 3 is also within the container. So let's just copy this, and let's do, this time we'll do from the bottom right and save. And now within its container, it went from the bottom up 100 pixels and from the right over 100 pixels. So you can precisely put things wherever you want within, positioned absolute within a relative container. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, before we move on to fixed, I just want to mention something, and that's the z-index property. Notice how box 1 is behind the container. So if I wanted to move this in front, I could use the z-index property. So let's go to box 1, which is our red box, and let's add z-index. And if we do just a value of 1, that should do it. Let's save, and now it's in front. So the higher the z-index, then the closer to you it's going to be. If I were to add to the container, which is the big box, if I add a z-index here of 2 and save, it goes in front of the red box because obviously 2 is higher than 1. And you can also have negative values as well. But let's get rid of that. We'll keep the red box up front. But I just wanted to mention that about z-index. All right, so let's do fixed. So box 4, let's say we want position to be fixed. Now watch what happens when I save. Watch what happens to the blue box, or actually the orange box. It seems to disappear, but it didn't disappear. What happened is it's under the blue box, because when it's fixed, it's pulled out of the flow of the document and put right on top. Okay, and this would be the next position after all this stuff. Now, if I were to scroll down, you would see the orange box because the blue would just stay where it is. So let me give you an example of that. We don't have enough content to scroll, but if I just add a crazy height to the body, we'll be able to scroll down. So let's just give the body a height of like 4,000 pixels and save. And now you can see we have a scroll bar. And as I scroll, see how the blue box just stays in a fixed position? So that's what that's going to do. So if you have a web page where maybe you have like an ad or something that's really important that you always want to stay on top, you would use fixed for that. Okay. And the next one I want to look at is sticky, which is similar, but you can actually have it stick in a certain spot. Like let's say the orange box here, we want it to stick to the top when we scroll down. So for box 5, let's say position sticky, and this is used a lot for menus because a lot of times you want the navigation menu to stay at the top no matter where you are on the site. Now where we want it to stick is top 0. So let's save that, and now you'll see the orange one is on top of the blue, and we can change that with the z-index. But let's scroll up and watch when I hit the top with the orange box. It stays there, okay? I keep scrolling and it still stays at the top. So it's really good for top menus or navigation menus. All right, and just to show you, box 5 is orange. If I were to give this a z-index, let's actually give this a negative z-index. So -1 and save, and you can see it goes behind the blue. So hopefully this gives you some insight on the different values for position as well as how z-index works. Now positioning like this isn't used that much in modern websites and UIs because responsiveness and having your layout look good on mobile devices is very important. And when you do things in this way, it's not very mobile friendly, okay? Unless it's like part of a very small area and you have stuff positioned absolute within there. That's still going to look good on a mobile device. But yeah, this stuff isn't used as much anymore than it used to be. All right, so in the next video, we're going to start to look at form styling. And I'm actually going to give this one to you guys as a challenge. I'm going to give you some hints, and I want you to try and style a form based on all the properties that we've learned about so far.